So, welcome to DojoCast. This is Sensei Mish. I am here today with my good friend, SuperDan Anderson of Anderson Martial Arts.
Howdy.
We're actually here at his dojo because I travel.
So if you hear a slight echo, it's because we're in a rather large room, and I haven't found out any way to EQ out echo yet. If anybody has any good ideas, let me know.
Yeah. So. Anyway, so this is technically the second episode. The first episode my wife and I kind of did together just to test. We talked about volleyball because she's a volleyball person and, you know, all that kind of stuff that goes along with that. And then she, you know, after I showed her, after to spend many hours editing, she's like, I looked like that. You didn't even tell me. I could have done I forgot to put in a hair clip. It's like, fine.
So did I.
You know what?
I forgot to put in a hair clip as well. So
I was like, you know what?
Lisa and I are on the same page.
Yeah. I was like, okay, fine. We'll re-record. So this will be the actual first aired episode.
Oh,
so
sweet.
This is we're making history here, the
Sweet.
very first DojoCast. So we've known each other for a while.
Oh boy. Shortly after Professor Remy's passing, which was like 2001.
Yeah.
And just to give a little background to people who are watching is that I had the concept of a couple of modern reminisce books, but I would never do them while Professor Remy was still alive. But I had them sitting off to the side. And then I don't know how, but I tagged with a fellow modern reminisce person who was Danelle Elliott and said, well, you know, I'd kind of like to get into this ebook thing. And she goes, I know a guy. And we hooked up, and essentially the rest is history. I've got 25 books that I've done by myself that are printed online on demand. They're also in ebook form, 30 some videos, and actually it all got its start with you back in 2001. So yeah, we've known each other for a little while. It's been a good relationship.
It really has. I've enjoyed. In fact, just I've attended classes and of course wanted to attend more, but I think just our friendship of, you know, talking every now and then because, you know, I've helped you with the website and you've called me for whatever.
And you'll help me in the future. We already have plans for that.
Oh yes, yes, and we'll talk about that too. So, but no, I think this has been a really good friendship, and it's gonna last even more. Upcoming in April, I'm his designated driver because he's having surgery and he can't drive. So we're gonna be going down to see Bram Frank down in Eugene. Yeah. So. Yeah, I'm gonna. And that's a shameless plug for Bram.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, I'm gonna be the newest inductee into the False Hip Society. Yeah. So I'll be right there with Bill Wallace and a number of others with my right hip surgery. So so I won't be able to drive. You'll have to like chauffeur me in your Jag. It's true, he owns a Jag.
And why don't you get the mic a little bit closer?
Oh, okay.
So you can just pull it closer, just so so you can.
So I don't bite it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay, it looks like it's recording a little bit better.
Good.
So, tell me about your first book, because I know you just came out with a newer version of the book, but this first book that you have people that have been around forever who'd been like, no, that. I have that book and I've highlighted and pages torn and taped back together and.
Way back, we have to go before actually publishing because, see, back in 1974, I had put together a sparring book. And the thing is that most karate books at that time were either self-defense manuals or they were primers. Right. So what you'd get is you get the basic kick punch, or you get a kata book, or, but it was nothing that spoke to anybody who sparred. Now, so back in 1974, I started working on a book, and I sent the, not like the galleys, but I sent a basic explanation to, of all people, Tuttle Publishing in Japan. Right. And they liked the concept, but where I took the pictures was at the school that I was training at the time. Well, it had a linoleum floor and it had checked, and it looked like somebody's kitchen is basically what it looked like. So I had a chance to get it published with Tuttle, but I went cheap on the photos.
Right.
So it ended up sitting in a drawer for a number of years. Now we fast forward to about 1979. I'm down at a tournament in either Oakland or San Francisco or whatever. And Paul Maslach, who was the editor of Inside Kung Fu at the time, he and I are talking. Now, he put a couple of books out on sparring, but the thing was is that, Paul was more of a theorist. He wasn't a bang-bang guy.
Okay.
And so I talked to him about, I've got this book on free sparring that I would like to do, and he darn near cut me off and said, if you do it, I'll print it. I said, really? He says, yeah, if you do it, I'll print it. Oh, whoa, okay, this is my shot. So I spent the next 9 months. I wasn't a typist. I hand wrote it.
Okay.
I gave what I hand wrote to this one woman, Kathy, in the secretarial pool. She would type it, hand it back to me. I would correct it. We had 3 proofs that went back and forth, and I finally got the manuscript done. I sent it down. I had copies of it. And then I plotted every sequence, every film sequence in that book. And when Bill Rookledge and I got down there, I had pages. Skip in and punch, 5, which means 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I had it all sequenced out. We shot 1,200 pictures one day. And now, mind you, no digital photography. We're having to stop, pose, flash, 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 flash. And we only broke for lunch, and we only took one day. Ed was amazed. And the key thing about the book was, this is the book that I wanted to read. Mm-hmm. This is the book that I wanted to read that nobody wrote. So I wrote it myself.
Right.
And back then, there was no such thing as online printing or anything like that. So I thought, okay, this is my one shot. I'm dumping everything into this. And the fascinating thing, I had a friend of mine tell me later, says he comes up and says, Dan, you gave away all your secrets. And what's going through in my mind is, does he think that I'm not going to learn anything more from this point in time?
Absolutely, yeah.
So anyway, so that was the original book, and it sold like wildfire. I've had so many people tell me about that. This is a must-read manual in their school. Now, we fast forward to maybe about a year ago, and I'm frustrated that I've received no royalties for probably 8-9 years. None.
Wow.
And unanswered communications. I would send an email. It would go somewhere. I don't know where it went. It went somewhere. I would call the company. I would get messages. Never a reply. So I finally decided, what I'm going to do is I'm going to put the book back out myself.
Right.
So what I decided was, instead of just doing a reprint and send it out, what I'll do is I'll do a revised expanded version, because, mind you, by the time this would be able to come out, it was 40 years ago. And so I thought, okay, well, good. A 40-year anniversary. And so what I did, modern technology being what it is these days, okay, I scanned. I found the cleanest copy that I had.
Right.
Scanned it and set it up so I could extract every single picture, every single word. And then when I restructured the book, what I added in was further clarifications, slight changes, and in one case, a complete reversal of opinion, which I thought was really interesting. It's like, gosh, I don't think that way anymore. I mean, not at all.
Wow.
And then what I did was I prefixed anything that was in the original book with, in bold, 1979. Anything that was a revised or expanded portion, 2019. And it was, let's say if we were working on timing.
Right.
And I go, yip, about timing, 1979. If I had more to say about it, there it is, 2019. Good, more on timing. So now what you see is how I thought then, how I think now. Do they exactly match? Do they slightly differ? And I have to put this plug in for Olympic champion Herb Perez, because
Oh yeah, totally.
he and I were talking at the last Maya show, the 2018 Maya show, and he asked me, how much has my thinking changed since I wrote the first book? And my immediate answer was, hasn't changed a bit. He goes, really? And then I thought about it, and that was kind of the germ of what ended up being, the new book. In fact, I'll flash a picture here, but this is
totally promote it.
This is the I don't know if this is right on the film here, but this is the same cover except for just the logo here. And then what's good fun is on the back.
I like it. I haven't seen that.
Oh, you haven't seen that yet?
I hadn't seen the back yet.
Yeah.
Because
that's 40 years
I'm a really
ago.
bad friend. I haven't purchased the book.
Well, that's okay. We'll talk after this. But anyway, it went from a 6-inch by 9-inch, 217-page book to an 8.5 by 11, I think 321 pages. So
wow.
It's been a huge edition.
Yeah.
And I'm very, very proud of it. But, the book ended up coming back into my hands, which is totally a different story. But be that as it may, the very first one has become the most recent one. So we've come very much full circle.
No, that's very cool.
Yeah.
That is very, very cool.
Yeah.
So what have people's responses been? I mean, I know that you'd been posting and people are like, oh, I got my book. It's awesome. But what kind of feedback have you gotten?
Beyond positive.
Yeah.
To be really interesting. I think one of the, Chad Edward had mentioned one thing which I thought was really interesting, which was he mentions about how much there is in it best digested in small bits.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, read only a little bit, sit back, digest this. Okay, now you can move on, as opposed to something you can fire through at high speed. So most of the comments have been, they've been very interested in how I thought then, how I think now, and just the fact that a person can progress over 40 years.
Right.
And, so that's been the major one, aside from just being happy to see more content than what was in there. And it was packed with content to begin with, but now it's got, a lot more content. So.
Right on.
Yeah.
Now, did you reshoot all the photos? Because I haven't seen it yet, of course.
Well,
but or did you use, or was it a combination of original photos and new photos?
It was a combination of the entire first book.
Right.
So I scanned the entire first book. So every single photo that was in the first book is in this book. Every single word that was in the first book is in this book. But what I did after that was, I've written a lot. So I culled a lot of material from other resources that I've actually written that show my viewpoint these days. And some photos I had to totally retake in a brand new unit of time. Right. And then there were other photos that I could use. But I would say probably half the book is new and revised stuff.
Awesome.
So it's like, the way I put it in the promo was the original classic text got better.
Yeah.
And I'm very proud of it. It's one of my two best karate works as far as I'm concerned. And it was so lovely because it was my first book. It was owned by another company. The rights by what can be best, it's called sloppy management, ended up reverting back to me. Yeah. And my baby finally came home to roost, and it was it was just wonderful.
That's all karma.
Yeah, exactly. So
right on.
Yeah.
No, I think that's really cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's funny when you and I first started talking about I told you I wanted to start a podcast and want to have you on and
I promised to be good.
Yeah. That's okay. I do curse. But I figured, I don't know, I thought maybe having a clean version and then a more authentic version. But it is what it is.
The 18 and over YouTube version? Yeah, okay.
Yeah. No, but when we had originally talked about it, and your book was coming out, and I was like, oh, maybe this will be a good way to promote his book and just kind of help you out, because I'm always
buy my books.
Yeah, shameless plugs.
Yeah.
Buy his books. I had realized that I actually never owned a copy of the original book, and I was like,
shame
oh God,
on
what a horrible friend. I'm just
shame
a
on
horrible friend. So. Because I've purchased other material that you've put out, and even some of the books that I'm in, I've purchased those books, But I was like, God, his original, I suck. So I did. I found it on Amazon, and I think it was Amazon. And then, of course, it got shipped to me, and it was sitting on my desk, and I was going to bring it here to say, look, but I forgot it.
Well, there you go.
Oh well. But yeah, no, I think that's very cool. So, and then of course, when I get here, I think every single time I come to your dojo, there's always something different. There's like the entrance. I mean, the desk hasn't changed in years, but there's always
handmade,
always changed. I even noticed you have weights off in the corner and all this other stuff, which I think is
well,
cool.
that's actually what we've done is we have a woman who's a personal trainer who comes in. And she comes in and uses the dojo during the day. She consults on diet, on physical training, etc. And that particular batch of material is hers.
Oh, okay.
So yeah, and we've done that since you and I have last seen each other.
Yeah.
But she comes in and she's has her own clientele, and I work very quietly when she's working, and so I don't intrude on what she's doing.
Right.
But she's becoming quite an asset, to Anderson Martial Arts, which is very cool. Yeah.
Well, it's just another way to promote the school and help her out and by giving her space and all that kind of stuff. No, that's cool. Because I walk in, it's like, oh, he has more bags and weights and all this other equipment. It's like it makes it more inviting.
Yeah.
So
good.
Yeah.
Good. I want to be inviting it.
Yeah. Well, of course, like when I redid mine, of course, I've been in a garage for years.
Yeah.
I put sheetrock on the walls and sheetrock on the ceiling and put lights, and it's insulated. I have a heater now so people can train in the winter. Yeah, it's a lot better now instead of students showing up with 2 layers of sweats and then their gi top on top of it.
Hard to hit those pressure points when they're layered in sweats, man.
So yeah. Anything to do to make the school better. No, I really like that.
Cool.
So you've got your book coming out, and I know we've talked about working on an online. I mean, because you've already kind of taken a lot of your works and made them digital and made that accessible.
Yeah, and the funny thing is that as you unfortunately know from working with me,
right,
is I'm extremely hands-on.
Oh, yes.
Every photo's got to be thus and such. Don't edit out a word that I know has a special meaning. I'll define the word instead, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Well, one of the interesting things that I did was I redesigned my book and DVD website, because the previous one was, it was just a bit hard to go through and figure out what you wanted and like that.
Right.
And so, thanks to YouTube and a number of hours, putting into it, I basically redesigned the website. I had a couple of friends, you and then a friend of mine in Florida, who helped me get out of corners that I painted myself into.
Right.
I painted myself in a couple of really good corners, but that was the first thing, was changing from, let's say, Dan Anderson Martial Media or whatever to the SuperDan online library,
right,
and where people can either buy physical objects, hardcover books or hard copy books or hard disk DVDs, to digital books, digital downloads, and so forth. And that's that was the first phase. The second phase is that. And I've been inspired by, both Dave Kovar and Melody Schumann on being able to do online instruction.
Right.
And so the SuperDan Online Academy is just in its very, very beginning phases of putting the content together. And you know, I've been filming on the Modern Reminisce curriculum.
Okay.
So each video anywhere between 2.5 to 5 minutes long, so that instead of inundating the person with this skill, this skill, this skill, this skill, let's take one piece, let's work on that, one piece, work on that, one piece, work on that. So anyway, a lot of video shorts, but besides the MA80 system, which is my Filipino martial arts system, besides the MA80 system, there's going to be various aspects of the karate system that I teach. So you not only have the American freestyle, which is based on the book that I just picked up, but also difference between that and the SuperDan method of free fighting, which is my previous book, which is not quite American freestyle, because the SuperDan method of free fighting, it teaches how anybody can free spar.
Right.
And knocks out a lot of the blocks to learning it, including, you know, okay, good. How do we do this with, you know, how do you do this without fear? You know, punches coming at you. How do you handle it without fear, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
Right.
Right down to kata execution. Good. Here's easier ways, or ways that you can train so that your kata is, your base is more stable, your focus is better, your breathing is better, et cetera. Solo, and then how to apply it.
Right.
You know, so that you've got what I call motion application bunkai, and just a number of segments, including one thing I think you'll find is interesting, is we never talked about this before, but I don't teach what I can't do.
Right.
So one of them is going to be actually a kickboxing section.
Okay.
Tim's Corner. Tim Gustafson knows how to kickbox.
Right.
And he and I have already talked about how to work in, you know, this is Tim teaching, okay, now he's got this combination of this jab, this cross, and then coming in with the leg kick, et cetera, et cetera. So I have one other one that I'm hoping to be able to talk the guy into. We'll see if Jeff will go for it. But Jeff Berger in Massachusetts has a curriculum that he teaches that he calls Houdini Jiu-Jitsu.
Okay.
Okay. You're on the ground. How do you get out? How do you apply certain common sense things to get off the ground? But you don't have to be a judo mat expert, a BJJ expert, etc.
Oh, interesting.
Yes, yes.
Yeah, no,
very interesting. Cool. And so the whole online academy is going to be, a broad-based, and then the prime thrust of it is that, now you've known me for years, you know, other people who are watching this haven't, but you know that if there's any one thing that I absolutely hate, it's loose ends. I absolutely hate loose ends.
Right.
There are too many mysteries in martial arts or unanswered questions, lack of a better term. And the thing is that my own personal belief is that if all the previous masters could execute in certain ways flawlessly, etc., there's no reason why we can't. None whatsoever. Now,
absolutely.
If you don't understand, it's going to be a mystery. So, okay, fine. My personal job is research. Let's make some sense of this.
Right.
And then if I make sense of it, usually that's my next book or video. So it's true. I'll research, I'll get the idea, I'll get it, and so forth, and then bang, lay it out in the common tongue so that somebody reading it can understand it, back it up with the right photos. So you're reading, picture, read, picture, read, picture. Oh, you mean if I bend the knee forwards this way, then push it in towards the other knee, the hips start to turn, the shoulders go out of whack. Simple, simple, simple.
Yeah, and you know, the one thing I give you credit for me, especially when it comes to, you know, showing techniques, kata breakdown, kyusho, whatever, is that I've been doing it so long that I just do it. And the one thing that I have found that's irritating is when, you know, I ask I go to a seminar and say, oh, how do you do that? I don't know. I just do it. So when I'm in class and one of my students is like, okay, how do you do that? I hesitate because since I hate hearing that, I don't want to say, I don't know, I just do it. So when sometimes I say, well, you know what, to me, it's just nature. I've been doing it so long that I just do it, but let's go through this step by step so you can do it too.
Right.
And that's because of your, no loose ends, got to figure out all this kind of stuff. That's something that I know that I've taken from you.
Oh, good.
Because that's something that, makes me a better martial artist and makes my students better martial artists. Good. Because, it's just like, I was showing, I was teaching Basai to some of my students at the church. Yes, one of my favorite katas. Yeah. One of my favorite katas. So I'm teaching a group of them Basai, and so I was going through, and I had to stop and go, okay, what did I do there? Because what comes out of my mouth is, okay, this is a side kick, and you can either just leave it out there and drop the foot, or you can pull it back. It doesn't matter, because, it's going to be your own personal kata when it ends. But, right. But it's like, but then I had to think about, well, what do I do? Because I noticed, there was one student just leaving her leg out and then dropping, but she was having trouble turning. And I was like, okay, so what am I doing?
Yeah, I know that action. Yeah.
I'm pulling the leg back in to complete my motion. And so I was like, no, we're going to pull the foot in, because that helps do the kata a little bit better. Right. And so, but it's fine. It's that fine tuning really, that it's just like, it's like, okay, so everybody else can do it, It's like kind of stepping back and just like, okay, step 1, step 2, step 3, step 4, step 5.
Exactly. A humorous way that I look at it is, somebody should probably go to about 50 different karate schools and get 50 different their sign-up agreements and look on there to see if there's this question: Did you come here to be confused? You won't find that. Yeah. You won't find that. So if you didn't come here to be confused, then part of my job is not to confuse you. Right. So, and that's, taken a long time to figure out, because my best teaching experiences is when I go back to white belt mind. And then it's like, okay, I don't know a thing. Well, let's see. What you want to do is you want to make the thumb touch here and here. Oh, okay. Yeah. Clench the fist, ball it tight. No. You want to touch the thumb to here and here. You got it, coach. So sometimes you have to get that very, very bottom line type of teaching, and then when you explore all possible aspects, which is what has been my self-ordained job, because I got out of competition many, many years ago. Professor Remy died 2001, and then Manong Ted who was my Balintawak teacher, had a stroke. Within 2 years after that, I stopped being, let's say, a professional student. Right. I stopped paying cash to learn lessons. It was like, okay, it's like I moved out of the house. Now I got to find out what life's like. Okay, well, I moved out of the house. Let's act like a grown-up. Let's start researching. And then it's fascinating, because in what I teach in seminars, I'll have people just utterly flipped out because nobody has explained something that their instructor's been trying to teach them. It's like, gosh, sensei's been trying to have me do blah, 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 and I've never been able to get it. Says, well, what do you do? Okay, well, this is what you're doing. The reason why you're not springing is because your knees aren't bending. Okay, let's bend those knees down just a little bit. Bang, they take off, and eyeballs go pow. So the research, we go back to the online academy. Yeah. The concept of the online academy is, how can I make your student better? Right. I've got my own dojo. I know how to make my students better. But instead of supplanting your teaching, any teacher's teaching, well, how can maybe something that I understand can tweak to make the Taekwondo guy a better Taekwondo guy, or a Kempo guy, better Kempo guy, right? Or. And this is what I look at in terms of, you know, really working on giving back. And yeah, well, to a degree selling back, because it's not going to be free, but
right. Well,
this is America. I've got to make a living. But
don't we all?
And I'll be honest about that. But but you know, that's kind of the concept, and that's, you know, whether it's in the reminisce, in the karate, or anything else where, you know, the martial arts are in. So
now, where do you see this going? Is it going to be like strictly, say, I'm an instructor who wants to start teaching modern reminisce, and so I sign up and I, you know, learn something that I can take into my dojo and then start going that way? Or is this something where I'm just kind of Joe Blow, oh, dude, this is really awesome, and I take online classes and then I promote through YouTube or come and see you in person? How do you see this molding itself?
Okay, well, my vision of this actually has several tiers. Now, the first thing is I'm not talking to black belts.
Right.
I was a young black belt. I knew it all.
Yeah.
You know, it took me a long time to figure out that I didn't know it all.
We've all been there,
know?
Yes.
And it's even worse when you're a champion.
Yeah.
You know, because I was regional, national, world karate champion.
Yeah.
I really knew it all. But so my concept is, my vision is the underbelt. Okay. Maybe the first grade black belt, but let's get down to the brown belts, the green belts. These guys who are starting to learn.
Right.
And they're starting to get into it. Maybe the white, maybe the yellow belt, because the way I've been filming the lessons, they are digestible by white and yellow belts.
Okay.
But you look at any school, and what you see is a ton of underbelts.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's the first quote-unquote target audience. Now, part of it will be, or one half of it will be, let's say, a subscription membership, such as a model for this is Melody Schumann's Skills program.
Okay.
So you got your bronze membership, you've got your silver membership, you've got your gold membership. Your bronze gives you access to this, 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 and this. Silver gives you more access. Gold gives you more access. You know, then you've got your, you know, gold lifetime. You've got your platinum, et cetera, et cetera. So,
right.
And in Melody's program, of which I'm a member of, we could talk for hours on what this woman has done. So I won't take up all of my podcast talking about her, but any of you guys who are teaching and you're teaching children, check out Melody Schumann. She's got it down.
Yeah, we'll put the link on the video.
Yeah.
And yeah.
But anyway, so there's that where
Right.
they would have access to any curriculum, any video. Now, let's say if there's, you know, somebody who doesn't want to be on, let's say, a subscription program.
Right.
Gosh, I don't want to pay X amount a month. I may use it, I may not, but I'm interested in this over here. Well, there will be certain module downloads or certain curriculum downloads that you can buy at one price. Pow, you download it, and you've got it on your computer. There you go.
Right.
So,
okay.
You know, what you get is you get the best of the both. You get the best of both in terms of buyers. You get, you know, some people who want continued access to whatever the material is. Then you'll have others that go, none of this really interests me except that.
Right.
And so you don't run into, I've got to be a member of this just so I can look at that. That's, there's a fellow who's really well known on Facebook and known in the industry right now, Brandon Beliso.
Yeah, Professor.
Yeah,
Professor Beliso.
Yeah, Brandon, nicknamed my little brother because well, I was one of his fighting heroes back in the day, and now it's funny, you know, we turn around and now he's a really good positive influence on me, but he is really into the concept of exchange.
Right.
You know, and his motto is, if I pay $100 and I get $500 worth of service, I'm a happy camper. So in having these two type of options, let's say on the online academy, I don't exclude anybody. I don't go, you know, it's it's a poor way of exchanging. If I want to reach people, I don't want to set it up so that I cut their reach.
Right on.
And that's a lot of programs accidentally set themselves up to perhaps blunt or cut the reach of somebody else. Well, I want to make it as reachable as possible. So if you only want the disarming section of the MA-80 system, well, there's that little module there. If you want white through black belt, okay, well, there's that great big huge chunk there. If you want access to pretty much anything that I am teaching, or any tips, tricks, etc., whammo, you've got it there. So the whole idea is that there's going to be something for everybody there. And it's going to take a lot of work. It's going to take a lot of work, but I've got it started, and I hope to pull the trigger on a beta version by about November 2019.
Okay.
That's my goal.
So what, November 18th? Is this going to be
on my birthday?
Is this going to be a birthday present to everybody?
It might be. Actually, what I want to do is I want to be able to have a beta version of it available by the 2019 Skills MegaCon.
Okay.
And so that puts a date on it. That gives a goal. That means I have to be a bit more disciplined about how I'm going about things. And I just started 2 weeks ago in terms of the actual videoing, and it's going really nicely. It's
right
going
on.
Really, really nicely. This hip surgery thing is going to put a little cramp in it, but there are certain things that I can either do or talk about, et cetera, which isn't going to require any kind of use of my lower body. So it'll be all good.
Okay.
Yeah.
No, that's good. I look forward to doing whatever I can to help out and seeing a final project.
You'll get tired of me. You'll get tired of me.
Well, it's funny. I can't remember what book it was. It may have been the first book that we worked on, the Defanging the Snake. Mm-hmm. And I was
when I kept calling you, hey Mish, how do I do this?
I don't know if you remember this. I remember it because it sticks out in my mind because there's pain involved. But I was working next door, kind of next door at when the Stamp Connection was just down the street. Yeah. Okay, over there. Now John is now down the street that way. Yeah. But I'd been laid off and I'd already done all this website stuff. So he's like, hey, I need an in-house guy and a helper. Why don't you, So John helped me out, which I really appreciate. So. So I was helping you out with a book, and I remember you calling me and saying, just, you're really frustrated, and I can't move on until ABC.
Which time was I frustrated?
Yeah. So,
which of the many times?
And it was like, it's like, you're right around the corner. Just come here now. I need to get this done. And John, like me, and John had just stepped out. And he left the store he's like, I'm going to be gone however long. And it was funny because I didn't know this at the time, but I was passing a kidney stone. And so I had this pain in my back, and I'm just like, oh. And then you call, and I'm like, I got a pain in my back, and now I have a pain in my backside, and the store, I can't leave the store. And I was like, he's right. This is going to be so simple. Because usually a lot of the problems that you have had at the time, simple answer. And you're like, duh. Yeah. So it just took a second set of eyes. So I was like, you know what? It's not going to hurt. So I put up that sign, be back in 5 minutes. I ran up the street. I came in here, and I'm holding my back, pointing at whatever, feeling nauseous at the same time. And you're like, okay, got it. And you had finished. I was like, okay, I got to go. And I ran back, and John was back in the store. He's like, where did you go? And I'm like, ah. Yeah, it was. Yeah. So no, I don't think I will ever forget that, just because it was like trying to juggle two things at once and pass a kidney stone. And so it was just like,
I know John. It's probably like trying to juggle 5 things at once.
Yeah. No, I like John. John's a good guy. I like him, but he's done really well. So, but that moment I was just like, ugh.
Yeah.
But going from there to what you have now, I think is just phenomenal.
It's been a great learning curve. It's been a really good learning curve. That's how people learn, shop, operate, etc. And you roll with the times and you try and learn something new. Now, I just happened to be fascinated by this, and where before I was backed off of using a computer in such a fashion, you know, I mean, I could email or whatever.
Right.
Now I'm very curious about it, and you know, like I said, thanks to YouTube, you can learn almost anything.
Oh,
and that's exactly what I learned on that. When it comes time to start outlining and planning the academy, I'm sure there's something up on YouTube on that, so that it's going to make our lives a whole lot easier.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and I think just even back in 2001, when you were like, hey, so Danelle told me that you're the person to talk to if I want to do this. Even me, who was in an industry where, you know, we were building websites and all this kind of stuff at the time, or, well, it's 2001. I think that was around the time, maybe a little bit after. But it was, you know, when you're just like, I want to do all my books in PDF.
Yeah.
And I was like, wow, that's kind of novel. I had, you know, now it's like, you know.
Now PDF is almost old technology. It's like back in the dinosaurs.
You know, and like, you know, with all the different services out there, I mean, even on a Mac, you just, in Pages, you can just type something and then boom, it's an EPUB, which now works, you know, in all sorts of different software programs. And so, but just the innovative thinking back then, I was like, that's why I was so intrigued, because I was like, okay, it's computer related, it's down my alley.
But it's an old karate, but the guy's so old.
Now, well, to give perspective on your age, I believe you got your black belt the year or two before I was born.
1970, January 15th.
Okay, so yeah, about a year and a half before I was born. Yeah. So you've been a black belt for a long, at least
49 years. And you want to hear something scary?
Yeah.
As of January 2019, I've been on the floor teaching for 50 years.
Wow.
Half a century.
Yeah. So
that almost hurt when I realized that.
But when I did, you know, you actually had lots more hair, which I know you actually started to, you know, cut it a lot shorter, but you actually had it a little bit longer, and you were fully bearded when I met you. So.
You know, it's really funny. It's in this day and age of branding, I think I did everything wrong except had the Superman symbol on my shirt, because I changed hairstyles and beards just at the drop of a hat. Bang, 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 bang. And, you know, why? I don't know. Probably because it amused me, or I thought it looked good, or. But, yeah, and it's funny because American Freestyle Karate, A Guide to Sparring, my own nickname for that is the hair book. Okay. Because that's, you know, when I had big curly hair, you know. Young man sitting under the perm, under the beehive, getting it permed with. This is back before, you know, the guys did that. So I'm sitting there with the ladies. Yeah, like it's just unbelievable. I can even admit it. But yeah, you know, it's martial arts. Has been a tremendous savings grace for me. It's changed a lot since since I first started. When, you know, back in the day, what you had, it was, you know, what they called the Bare-Knuckle Era. And I remember Bob Barrow, one of Chuck Norris's students, was talking about, you know, when you're hitting the body, control is wrist deep. You know, I remember those days. And then, but it was a real golden era for martial arts progression, because, you know, what you had is the growth of karate was pretty much dictated by what was going on in the tournaments. Right. And what you had there was, you know, starting in 1964, okay, one of my mentors, Alan Steen, he wins a Texan winning the International Karate Championships. How did he do that? Well, he beat Joe Louis and Chuck Norris in the same day. Not many people can say that. No. But it goes from there. You know, Chuck Norris, I would say probably the first person who actually cross-trained in karate styles at that time.
I see a meme coming forward on that.
Yeah, probably, but not from me. Not from. I owe too much to Mr. Norris. Yeah. But you know, he goes to he's from Tang Sudo, kicking oriented, goes to a Japanese tournament, gets his kicks shut down, gets beat by a puncher, a superb fighter, Tony Tulliner's. But instead of going back and whining, he searches out Nishiyama, Oshima, and I believe Takuboda to teach him how to punch. Unheard of back in the 60s.
Yeah.
So he comes up with a version of Tang Soo Do which has tremendous kicking but tremendous punching. And it rolls on and on from there. Joe Louis comes out, introduces the front hand strike. Back in the day, it was all coming off the rear punch. Okay, he's dusting people with this back fist. People are kind of going, "Oh, that must work." You get into the guys who are doing double kicks, spin kicks. Bill Wallace comes out with his patented method of kicking. I remember Professional Karate Magazine had a story on Jeff Smith and Pat Worley, and these guys are actually training. He's got pictures of them running and lifting weights. It wasn't just karate training. Right. Now they're doing additional stuff, right? And so you get this period of tremendous growth, and I was really lucky to have grown up during that time. So I could meet Joe Louis, Chuck Norris, John Natividad, Bill Wallace, Demetrius Havanis. The list goes on and on. And interesting time. Interesting time to be a young man doing martial arts during an era when martial arts didn't pay anything.
Right.
Yeah. I started teaching as a brown belt in 1969, but that was also when I went to my first international karate championships.
Okay.
Down in Long Beach. And the growth after that was just pretty incredible.
Right.
Yeah.
So now you started taking karate in
1966,
but in a location wise,
Vancouver, Washington. It was the Marshall Recreation Center.
Okay, right. That's what I was trying to think. It was it was just a rec center. It wasn't your traditional dojo or school or anything like that.
It was the weight room. They moved the weights off to the side. We had this lovely concrete floor, which I learned to bounce on. Boing. And cold floor. So, the chill would creep up through the legs into the hips. And I was in pig heaven. I was absolutely in pig heaven. I had the extreme, especially when I look at it these days, I had the extreme fortune of having Lauren Christensen as my first teacher.
Right.
And Lauren, this kind of a funny story about my very first lesson. It's a friend of mine, Dave Starkey. He was a blue belt.
Ooh.
Oh, yeah. You should have seen these guys who were blue belts. Wow. I was amazed. Yeah. Anyway, he tells me when the class is, and I'm pestering my mother for my 14th birthday. She finally says, "Okay, fine." We go to the rec center. I show up. Well, Dave's been telling me the time of his class, not the beginner's class. His class is kind of like, I'm an hour late. And but Lauren, he's running the class at the time, and he pulls one of the blue belts over, and I still remember this just perfectly to this day. Tony Leonetti, and says, "Teach him a few things." And I learned how to do the straight punch. I learned how to do the down block. I learned how to do the Zenkutsu Dachi, or the climbing form, and front kick. Ripped my pants out that night doing the front kick. In heaven, because I'm doing this karate thing, and then I started coming back for my regular appointed hour, which was 6 o'clock, not 7 o'clock, and how I didn't drive Lauren nuts at that time, I don't know, because I would pester him with questions. He would show stuff. I always had a notepad.
Right.
I would go off to the side and I would cartoon out the moves, and then I'd come back on the floor and train. After several months, I asked him if I could train with the intermediate guys as well. And what I found out later on at the time, Lauren's kind of cocking an eyebrow at this, but he says, "Well, yeah, we'll see how he turns out." And as it turns out, I'm training harder than the guys in the intermediate class. And so I'm training the beginning class and the intermediate class, and then a little further down the line, I ask him if I can train in the advanced class as well. And again, he allows it. So for me, oh man, this is just like, I mean, for the modern day viewer has got to remember that what we had was, at best, was Bruce Lee as Kato in The Green Hornet.
Right.
We didn't have all of Bruce Lee's movies. We didn't have Jet Li. We didn't have Jackie Chan. We didn't have YouTube. We didn't have MMA. We didn't have all this type of media that we could watch and satisfy our interest,
Right.
our curiosity. We had karate class. And that was it. And Black Belt Magazine, which came out every 2 months. So so I was in heaven. Absolute heaven. And the cool thing about Loren was that he didn't just teach the class, he trained in the class. And he worked twice as hard as everybody else did. So the biggest puddle of sweat was under Loren Christensen. And he drilled us hard. He drilled us hard. He was terrific at really grooving in our basics. But even more so as an inspiration or role model, was probably one of the driest senses of humor that you ever saw. Because he wasn't so serious that he wouldn't pull your leg.
Right.
I was an incredibly green white belt. I'd believe, black belt. Oh my God. I'd believe anything.
Right.
I don't know if I ever told you this before, but he told me one time that the black belt, who was the leader of the school, Bruce Terrell, could jump in the air, perform all of Heian or Pinan Yodan before he landed on the ground. Yeah. Really? Wow. I don't know how he must have like bit hard on his cheeks not to laugh when I'm like all agog about this, but it was one of the best guys I could have ever lucked out into having as my first teacher, and we remain friends to this day.
Yeah. Well, I saw that you posted a couple months ago, or maybe about a month ago, that you gave him a 10th Dan.
Well, no. I was the errand boy.
Okay.
I was the errand boy. I received my 10th Dan a year ago. Oh gosh, it'll be 2 years ago this coming May.
Right.
From the American Karate Black Belt Association, which is Mr. Steen's group, and which is another interesting story in and of itself. Totally took me by surprise, and we can get to there if you like. But there's one thing that I really, really value, and that's the power of an acknowledgement. Mm-hmm. There's far too little acknowledgments in the martial arts. It's more along the joke of how many martial artists does it take to screw in a light bulb? 100. One to screw in the light bulb, 99 to tell them that won't work in the street. So
yeah.
So there's this huge lack of acknowledgement, and for me, when I got promoted, how I looked at it was, in the Academy Awards, you have every year the guy wins the Oscar for Best Actor, Best Actress, Best Picture, etc. But every year, there's always somebody who wins a Lifetime Achievement Award.
Right.
Maybe the director or the actor never won an individual Oscar, but they put together such a body of work that they were instrumental, in that area.
I'm hoping for Harrison Ford to get that one day.
That would be good. Harrison Ford's pulled off some really, really good stuff. Yeah. But when I sat back and looked at, okay, everything, not only that I had achieved, but what I'd given back to the art, then I could accept it.
Right.
So anyway, fast forward to several months ago, and I'm thinking, Loren Christensen, he is extremely well known in the real deal world. Okay, not the tournament world, but the real deal world.
Right.
And he's written so much, and et cetera. I mean, he's really given back. So I emailed Keith Yates and Roy Kerbin, who are on the promotion board, High Dan board, and I said, yeah, well, this is my view. This is what Loren has done, et cetera, et cetera. And I get these immediate answers. Oh, I know Lauren's work. He's tremendous. He's a credit. Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
And so I suggested, but the board had to vote on it.
Right.
And since, Lauren stays pretty much at home, I got the honor of being the errand boy of the certificate. Oh, and it was one of those where I can't claim that I was more jazzed than him, because when I called him up and talked to him on the phone, he was stunned and amazed.
Yeah.
And then the day that I bring over the certificate, again, he's stunned and amazed. And it was like a huge moment for him, but oh my goodness, it was a terrific moment for me too, because here it is, my teacher who has gotten the acknowledgement in terms of martial arts acknowledgements. And that was a special day. That was a special day. Yeah.
I think that's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think you FaceTime that live, and I got some notification. Dan Anderson is live, and I'm like, it's like, I gotta go to a code. Okay, watch later.
Yeah, yeah. No, it was. Yeah, luckily we're in an era where we can do a Facebook Live.
Yeah.
So that besides the posts, we can actually go through the moment. And the only negative on that was that I held the phone slightly cockeyed, so part of it was blurry.
Yeah, and you were in portrait mode. That's one of my pet peeves. Sorry.
Okay. See, well.
Yeah, that's just
learning curve.
That's just me.
Learning curve.
Many filmmaker. That's just landscape it's all about landscape.
I'll remember that next time.
But hey,
yeah. But it was a magic moment that was caught.
Yeah, it was caught. It was live, caught on video. It's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah. No. Well deserved. So.
Definitely.
Yeah, I've never met him, but I do know his work, and so he's. To find out that he got that honor, that was amazing. So
yeah, very much so.
So now, what? I can't even forgot what I was going to say.
He's running out of questions. Pretty soon we're going to edit. I will sit over there. I'll ask the question, then I'll come back to here.
Oh, well. You could do that. Like you told me.
Yeah.
Years and years and years ago.
And did you listen?
I think I did.
Okay. Go ahead. I won't interrupt you. I'll be good.
So you said it's all about the editing.
Oh boy.
It's all about the editing.
That's right.
Because I think we did. We were shooting some cane disarm, and we were using a little. It was a digital camera.
Yeah.
And it was top of the line at the time, but it was like
little boxy things.
It was like a 1.5 megapixel, something like that. It's funny, my phone is like 20 times that now, but
scary.
But it was like, it's like filming the cane drop. It's like, okay, Tim and I are frozen in one position.
Oh, yeah.
Well, no, I don't think Tim and I together. It was either me and you or Tim and you. The other person was taking the pictures, but it's like, okay, and let go and click. So it was getting the cane in motion.
Yep. I remember that.
Yeah.
So
no,
times have progressed.
Yeah, and I think you also said I can't remember the exact line, but it was. Maybe it wasn't about the editing. It was. This is Hollywood. But it.
Oh, that so sounds like me.
It related. It related to the editing.
Yeah.
And I think also you said his is "I'll make you famous."
I'm still working on that.
Yeah.
I got to work on making me famous first. Well, then I'll make you famous.
Okay.
Or famouser.
Famouser.
Then we'll be the famous-est. Yeah.
Right on. No, so how? Honestly, I am out of questions.
Okay.
I mean, because we talk every now and then, and I did want to talk about what's going on with you now. Your book, your online stuff, maybe reminisce. I know that I did hear you tell the story one time that you were the one person who met Bruce Lee who didn't teach him anything.
It's my great Bruce Lee story. Yeah, I was I mentioned about going down to the International Karate Championships as a brown belt, and that was in 1969. And we drove down there, and I competed, and I can't remember how I did.
Right.
Let's just say this: I know I didn't win the championships.
Okay.
And so now the internationals at that time was a 2-day tournament, and at the end of the eliminations on the second day, they cleared out the Long Beach arena to clean it out to set it up for the finals. And so there's a number of us out on the lawn. We're waiting for the doors to open, and this limo pulls up. Now it's about 100 yards away. It's definitely a ways. And the door opens up, and out walks Bruce Lee and his wife, Linda. And, I'm a 16-year-old kid at this time, and I'm kind of going, can't talk. And I just make a beeline for him. Now, he's going to be able to go in early because he's a TV star at that time, and he's been on Black Belt magazine, and he's he's the big flavor right now. And I'm just kind of going, I got to meet him. So I make a beeline for him. I have no clue what I'm going to say.
Right.
But he's coming in, and I intercept, and I walk right in front of him and Linda, and I said, "Excuse me, sir, you're Mr. Bruce Lee, aren't you?" And he said, "Yes." And I'm still racking my brain on what to say that might even slightly resemble intelligence.
Yeah.
And nothing's coming up. And so I told him, I collect martial artist business cards. Do you have one that I could have? Now, whenever I tell this story at a seminar, I'll ask, okay, who came here in street clothes? People raise their hand, so I'll pick a person out and say, okay, good. What did you wear when you came here? Oh, well, I wore, I wore a blue shirt and a pair of pants. What kind of pants? Well, they're blue jeans. Okay, good. So are they new blue jeans or old blue jeans? Oh, they're old blue jeans. Okay, what color socks did you wear? Oh, they were my gray ones. Okay, what kind of shoes? Well, I've got my U.S. Kids Flyers. Okay, good. Now, it's a little bit chilly outside. Did you wear a jacket? He says, oh, yeah. Which one? Oh, well, I wore the burlap one, blah, 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 blah. Good. Do you wear a belt? He says, yeah. What color's your belt? Well, it's this lime emerald green in honor of Green Lantern or whatever. Mm-hmm. And I'll smile at everybody and say, well, so he came here, he knew what he was wearing. Now, when Bruce Lee came out, remember this is 1969, he has on a black Nehru jacket, he's got the collar and everything. He's wearing a pair of white pants that are so tight that you'd believe they were either spray painted on, and you can count every hair on his leg. And he's got his beetle boots. I can see that he doesn't have space for a business card.
Right.
So what does he do? He goes, reaches around. He goes through the motions of checking to see if he had a business card. Now, you can't tell me Bruce Lee didn't know what he had on and didn't have on.
Right.
He took 4 seconds to go through the motions, checking. I'm sorry, maybe next time. Thank you, sir. I leave. Now, okay, I met Bruce Lee, but he could have blown me off the way that Joe Louis blew me off that night.
Right.
And it was such a contrast. He took 4 seconds out of his time. I actually interrupted his going, so he was, he took 4 seconds out and was gracious about it.
Right.
For a young fan. And I left, I was, again, seventh heaven. I was just happier than a clam. No business card, but happier than a clam. And that influenced me for later on when I was a competitive champion. Mike Geneva, who, out of North Carolina, Mike Geneva, and any fan that came up to us at any time, either with a question or a program to sign. Mm-hmm. I remember one time I'm getting ready to go up on the finals, on the stage for the finals. I'm fighting SuperDan Anderson. I'm getting ready to go, and a kid comes up with a program. And I got to go up there and tell him, stay here. Stay right in this spot. Don't go anywhere. I've got to fight. I'll be back. Mm-hmm. And I knew, win, lose, or draw, if this kid's there, I'm going to come back, put on my best face, and I'm going to sign it. I go up. I can't even remember how I did in the match.
Right.
Kid was there. Good. You listen to what I said. Where's your pen? Boom. And he was happy and he left. That was Bruce Lee's lesson.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I'm the only person alive who's met Bruce Lee and didn't teach him a doggone thing. But he taught me something. There's a lot of these guys that that were just, little itty-bitty things. Chuck Norris. Mm-hmm. I remember he's up here, 1973. He's up here for a seminar, in Gresham, at Gresham High School, because Bob Barrow was an English teacher, and Bob was one of his guys, right? And I was young and broke at that time, so I'm actually sitting up in the stands, and I'd met Chuck before, and he had probably seen me fight. And I was I was a local champion at that time. I was kind of like the guy to beat. And I'm sitting up the stands, and he's in the middle of the seminar, and he looks up and says, "Danny, why aren't you down here?" And I just kind of, not overly loud, but I mumble loud enough so he can hear it. Sorry, I'm kind of broke this week. "Danny, come on down and train." It was like, "Yes, sir." Boom, I get my gi and I get on the floor and I'm doing the seminar. And, you get little things like that. Bill Wallace, 1973 U.S. Championships. While I was this cocky young sod at home, when I was on the national circuit, boy, I really minded my P's and Q's. So we're at the Internationals, Dallas, Texas, February 1973. I even had to borrow money to get there.
Right.
And my gosh, there's Bill Wallace. Whoa. So I walk up, excuse me, Mr. Wallace. Hi, I'm Dan Anderson from Portland, Oregon. And could you give me some pointers on my hook kick? He took me outside the arena. We stretched and worked out for 20 minutes.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. We stretched and worked out for 20 minutes in an answer to my question. My goodness. So you get a lot of, I've got a lot to pay back for, because these guys gave me these things.
Right.
Steve Saunders, who's now Steve Muhammad. I got this incredible lesson in race relations with Steve, right? And we're driving down to the Internationals, 1969. Now, at that point in time, Vancouver, Washington, about 24,000 people, basically from where I had experienced, a real white town.
Right.
I'd met 2 black kids in school. That's it. We go down, and mind you, it's 1969. So we got a lot of civil rights stuff happening.
Oh, absolutely.
Oh, in the media, you would think civil war is occurring and shots are being fired on a regular basis.
Right.
This is the climate of the times, right? I'm driving down, and all I'm hearing about is BKF, meaning Black Karate Federation, riot. BKF, fights. BKF, dissension. BKF, trouble, right? And I'm hearing this all the 1,000 miles I'm going down to LA, right?
Right.
So anyway, we get down there, and I'm at the tournament, and mind you, I've read every magazine. I know all these guys who are fighting. Mm-hmm. Steve Saunders was a rated competitor, and oh my goodness, there he is, about 30 feet away from me, sitting in the stands. And there's probably about 25 or 30 BKF people. And I am in a quandary. Gosh, do I go over and get to meet one of these guys that I've read about and then get killed.
Right.
Because BKF, riot, BKF trouble, BKF, this little white boy is going to get his behind handed to him.
Right.
Do I do this? Do I not do this? So, in for a penny, in for a pound. I walk over, and again, excuse me, you're Mr. Saunders, aren't you? Yes, sir. Well, I've read about you in the magazine, and I'm from Portland, Oregon. I just want to come by and say hello. I don't know what exactly he said to me. I still don't remember.
Right.
But it was nice handshake, gentle voice, and and a smile. And then I walk away, and it's kind of like, now what's wrong with this picture? I'm getting all this yip driving down, but my experience tells me different.
Right.
As it turned out, in the long run, I am nearly an honorary BKF member. I went down year after year, meeting Mr. Saunders, meeting a lot of the second generation guys, being friends with a lot of the second generation guys. Terrific fighters, terrific attitude. Definitely not the yip.
Right.
And so, in fact, I even met up with Pops. That's his nickname. I met up with Pops when I went back to the battle, and we went out to breakfast. And I had told him this story before, but I told him again. And honest to Pete, he said, well, you know, what you didn't know was you were the guy that we watched to find out how to fight the national competitors. It's kind of like, and you got to get this picture in terms of seniority. Steve Saunders, me.
Right.
You're watching me. Oh my goodness. And the wonderful breakfast. Communication with several of the guys, to this day. But example of a lesson learned along the way, right? And so, it continues up to, even more recently when I'm talking with guys business-wise, like Randy Reed or Melody Schumann or Brandon Beliso. I'm constantly learning.
Right.
And so in all that, kind of a lesson coming out of the Bruce Lee story that you asked me about.
Yeah.
But, good. It's all about how to return the flow.
Right.
And so I had Jackie Bradbury said something one time, which she authors the Stick Chick blog on Facebook, right?
Okay.
She's one of Mark Lynn's students, and we were talking about marketing, et cetera. And I'm telling her about the online academy, and she said, okay, well, when you're looking at branding, one thing that you should look at, and mind you, this never occurred to me at all, right? She goes, well, one thing you got to remember that that you market is that that you're an approachable grandmaster. I'm kind of like, just being me. I'm just paying it forward.
Right.
But to somebody else who either looks at the accomplishments or looks at the rank or looks at the number of books or whatever, they might inadvertently have me doing here.
Right.
And what is it? Why I'm so approachable? Barry McConnell. He said this one time, just cracked me up. We're coming back from a seminar and it's late. And I asked him if we can stop and get something to eat. Now this is close to midnight or something.
Right.
He goes, oh yeah, no problem. So, oh gosh, thanks, Barry. Thank you very, very much. He goes, Dan, you're the lowest maintenance grandmaster I've ever met. I was like, well, okay. Again, it's all about paying it forward.
Yeah.
And it's all about making the experience easier for the guys who are coming up after me, so that when it's their time, they can make it easier for the next generation and so forth.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, you tell that story about being personal. I don't. like, so Mark Klein, okay, one of Dillman's guys. I had met Dillman, you know, I'd gone to several of his seminars. I met Mark, like, I don't know, 1994. And
yeah, George is one of the
that.
big three who I didn't know that well. I knew Professor Wally. Oh my, what an individual. Obviously, a student Professor Remy's for over 20 years.
Of course.
But
and we haven't even talked about him yet.
Mr. Dillman, I only had met peripherally here and there, and he's usually at a big three seminar. Anyway, sorry to interrupt. Go ahead.
Oh, no, that's okay. So, so, you know, I didn't really know Mark, but, you know, we exchanged emails, and I was trying to figure out how to get him out here. And, but it was still that, you know, oh, he's this 8th degree black belt. And, you know, I don't know what my rank was at the time, you know, probably 3rd or 4th or whatever, but still higher rank. He knows the big guy. He's doing his own thing, you know, and so there was that, not really fandom, but there was that hesitation, like, is he going to give me the time of day?
Yeah.
And so finally he just was like, you know, when am I coming out? It's like, I don't have the money that you require. He goes, nah, just send me money for a plane ticket and we'll figure it out from there.
Yeah.
And picking him up I mean, it was, I had to kind of put in my mind that this is just another human being, you know, take away his rank, take away this, you know, and it's like, he's just another human being, you know, and like for you, even when I met you, I didn't really know who you were. You were just
shame on you. Where's your research into martial arts history?
Well, you know,
where have I let down my personal promo for crying out loud?
Dude, that was,
I know.
almost 20 years ago.
Yeah, I know.
So, but you know, Danelle had brought in, and, you know, brought you in, and so our friendship kind of just grew out of just friendship.
Yeah, one-on-one. Yeah.
Yeah. So it was just one of those things, but you know, even when I went, and I know I'm probably taking a left turn in Albuquerque, which is another thing that I got from you. Thank you very much.
I love that phrase.
So, I actually was going down to a big three in Florida. It was 2000. So it was actually the last, I believe it's the last U.S. seminar that Remy taught in Hogan's seminar, Florida. Jacksonville. So I don't know where I was, which airport I was in, but I was just sitting, waiting for my plane, and there was this Filipino guy that looked really familiar. And I had never met this. I had gone to a couple of his seminars.
Yeah.
But I was never the one to go up and be like, you know, shake his hand and all that kind of stuff.
Right.
And so I didn't really know him personally, and I wasn't sure. So I just sat there just going, should I talk to him? Should I not talk to him? I don't know. But I was still very, very young. Yeah. You know, because I think even at the time, well, I was 2000, so I don't know, I was 20s, but still.
You were a child.
I was a child.
There you go.
I still am a child. Can still be a very inappropriate child at times. But anyway, so I sat there going, God, what if that isn't Remy? You know, I don't want to embarrass myself and all. So I sat there, and then all of a sudden, well, that was him. Yeah. I was like, kicking myself. I should have talked to him, because I tell that story to some people, and even like Bram tells his story about the first time he met him. He goes, oh no, if you had sat down and asked him, are you Professor Priestis? He would have been like, oh yeah, no, sit down, and I
very approachable that way. Yeah.
But of course, it's that mindset of like, oh, you know, he's up here and I'm down here.
Yeah, unfortunately, the martial arts fosters that mindset.
Yeah.
And you know, in one way, okay, I can understand the acknowledgement of the rank, of the accomplishments, etc. But to foster that degree of separation where one is less approachable because of those, that's, you know, it's almost un-American.
Yeah.
You know, that's not an American culture type of thing, which is, you know, too bad that rolls that way in the martial arts, but there you go.
Yeah, and I don't know, like nowadays, I don't really care. You know, oh, you're 10th Dan. I haven't ever met you before, but oh, I've seen some videos. Hi, my name's Mish.
Right.
And if you don't like me, that's fine. I don't care. Whatever. I am what I am. But definitely younger, there was this like, oh, it's just that, it's getting rid of the rank. In fact, Jesse Enkamp.
Yeah.
I may be pronouncing the name wrong, but he does that Karate Nerd Experience seminar that I would love to eventually go to some year. But he has everybody put on pink belts because he's like, rank doesn't. We're all here to learn. Rank doesn't matter. And I was just like, that is such an awesome concept.
And to see Ian Abernethy and Patrick McCarthy
in pink belts.
Actually, it's funny because I know Ian and I know Patrick very well, and it's a great idea from Jesse, but I think that speaks more to the viewpoint of Patrick and Ian, because I mean, both of them are very well known, very distinguished, very accomplished in their areas in martial arts, and so for them to do that at Jesse's camp is just, I mean, incredibly impressive. This is where what you get very approachable, down to earth guys. If you now, have you ever met Patrick McCarthy?
He was in town doing a seminar. I had a chance to go, but something fell through, so I didn't end up going.
Okay, so.
But that was years ago. If you
read how he writes and you look at his credentials, one would get the mistaken impression that he's unapproachable. Because I mean, he writes. He's very literate. He's very literate, very educated in his writing. Then you look at his pedigree, and it's like, oh my goodness. I mean, how do you even come close to touching what the awards and the Dan ranks and the titles, et cetera, that he has legitimately earned? Gosh, how do you go up to this guy? Now, the thing is that, I mean, he's as approachable as you and I are.
Yeah.
One of my running jokes is that, I knew Patrick McCarthy back when he was Pat. And, Pat, very approachable. Ian Abernethy. This guy, I tell you, what you don't see on his videos and his books is that big, broad smile of his. He's got one of the most engaging smiles that you ever saw in your life. And I spent time with him in 2006 and 2007 in the UK.
I remember that.
And and just as personable as the day is long. And here's a guy who is such an authority on, kata, self-defense breakdown, bunkai, that he actually taught at Chuck Norris's UFAF convention, I believe 2 years in a row, if not more. I know for sure it was 2 years in a row. And they don't just invite anybody. Yet, so you see the pedigree of both individuals willing to put on pink belts at Jesse's camp. It's just like, it was perfect. It's like, this is what you should look up to and aspire to. Let's go for excellence, but let's keep your mind back on earth, And these guys, their influences, very terrific role models, And when I say that for me, I don't role model for somebody else, okay, fine, but role models for me,
right?
So.
Well, and when you talk about, I see that very humble. If you're willing to take off your red, multi-stripe belt to put on a pink belt, it's just like, I'm just another person. I'm a martial artist. I'm taking it's that humility in the martial arts that we're all supposed to learn. In the martial arts. Well,
knowing Ian, I'm not sure about Pat. I'd have to talk to Pat about that. But knowing Ian, there's probably a spirit of fun in there too.
Oh, true. True.
One of those where instead of, gosh, we're all on the same table, it's just, this ought to be fun. Yeah. This ought to be interesting.
Yeah.
Boy, that sure is bright.
Well, I remember that when I first started coming into your school, you actually had a pink belt that had like lace on it, and
I still have it.
I think you said that you used that as punishment because you used to use
incentive.
Okay.
We can't use the P word these days.
Oh.
Incentive.
I'm not very PC anyway, but regardless,
new millennium.
So as we get incentive, because the kids were having too much fun doing push-ups and having too much fun doing horse stance, and you're just like, I gotta find something that works. Gotta find something that works. And now it's like, I handed out pink belts to all because I took over a church group. We meet every Wednesday, and so I'm slowly moving them from their curriculum into my curriculum, which is not really all that different. It's just two different mindsets,
right?
And so basically during the month of October, I gave them all pink belts, and then I wore a pink belt, and Thomas wore a pink belt. So we're all wearing pink belts, and I kind of used that as a segue into getting them new belts.
Wow.
For my system.
That's smart. That's good.
Yeah, but and I have another student that he doesn't train with me anymore, but he was kind of a private student. He was like, "You have pink belts? What do I have to do for a pink belt? What's the what are the rank requirements?" And I was like, "Well, there really isn't a rank requirement. It's just kind of something because when I've done women's self-defense seminars, I hand out pink belts."
Oh, okay.
So it's like, you get a certificate, you showed up, you trained, you had fun, and then you get, a physical something you can,
right.
And so I had, he's like, "That's really cool. What do I need to do to get a pink belt?" And I was like, so now it's like completely like, it's a cool thing to have, So it's like,
not to some of my students, it isn't. Some of my students, it's like, no.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But like back on the humility thing, for me personally, and I don't know how it was for you, because I've always known you as just kind of loud, as in saying being a good thing.
Yeah.
But you're out there. You have a school. I know your success has gone up and down over the years, but it's just been You've always just kind of been that way. Mm-hmm. But at the same time, you're not like, I'm Dan Anderson, 10th degree black belt. You got to, it's just like, you're Dan, you're Danny to me. So, but for me, as somebody who, has been, for years trying to build my school and I've had Cusho Corner going for the last couple of years, mm-hmm. and it's, trying to do different things, not necessarily to brand myself or make a name for myself, but just for the longest time, at least up until recently, the humility thing for me, I think, was getting in the way because I really wasn't telling people because I don't introduce myself and say, "Yes, my name is Mish. I'm a 5th degree black belt and I teach martial arts."
Right.
It's usually this is like, "Yeah, I'm Mish."
Yeah.
Well, what do you do? "Oh, I teach martial arts." Really? Okay.
Yeah,
so I don't know if that's something that I question it. Has that? Am I being too humble?
Okay. Let me go in 2 segments.
Okay.
And we'll go first the humility segment or whatever. My first honest to goodness pie in the face on that one was roughly about 1977. And I mentioned earlier in this chat that I was a bit cocky at home, but I minded my P's and Q's on the national circuit. Well, when I was at home, cocky might be understating it only by about that much. And, I thought I was the white Muhammad Ali. Mm-hmm. Now, the antics of Muhammad Ali in a locale about 10 years behind the times in terms of modern progression in martial arts, it's not necessarily a good thing.
Yeah.
I was ticking people off left, right, and center. Now, the rebels just loved the heck out of me. But the traditionalists, man, you'd almost see fireworks if I lost a match. You know, there would be a celebration, you know, break out the keg. And then I remember in 1977, I stepped out for a little bit, and I started hearing about, you know, this fighter said this, that fighter said that. You know, well, you know, Dan's better than me with his legs, but I can match him with his punches. Dan did this, Dan did that, and I'm kind of like going. So I got back into competition, right? Well, we go forwards, and I keep hearing these tales about, well, you know how he acts, and then they would relate a story, but the story was like 3 years old,
Right.
and I'm kind of going, wait a minute, I'm not acting like that now. That was then. And the fascinating thing is that the realization that had occurred was that, you know, it takes only a moment to break down a good reputation. It takes years to earn it back.
Right.
And so it was about 77-ish as to when I started working on my public image. And, you know, if you talk to Keith Vitale or Raymond McCallum or Jimmy Tabarez or Linda Denley or any of the really top stars of the late 70s into early 1980, they'll talk about how I was energetic, how I was laughing, how I was fun, how I was a firebrand. But the word you'll never hear is disrespectful. I wasn't disrespectful. Okay. So that's gone on even more and more and more over the years. And like I said, you know, Brandon Beliso is, you know, criminy sakes, he's got 2 schools, and I think in the 2 schools, I believe he grossed like $2 million.
Yeah.
I mean, you talk about somebody who has bragging rights.
Right.
But that's not his way. It's like, okay, good. He's calm, he's humble, etc. And I look at public image, etc. Now, that's in terms of, and I don't look at it in terms of humility. I look at it in terms of manners.
Okay.
You know, I'm extremely certain of what I know. I know what I can do. I know what I can't do. Some people would say, well, gosh, that's not being humble. And I'd sit back and I go, that's not being real. Now, the trick is am I in your face about it? Okay. We're segueing into your question on, okay, am I being too humble or whatever? There's a difference between being a blowhard and self-promotion.
Right.
Now, I learned that last year. This is like a very, very incredible story, but I'm down at, of all things, Grant Cardone's 10X convention.
Okay.
I got one of the cheap tickets. Trust me, it was a cheap ticket. I was ducking comets and shooting stars. I was so far up into the stands. And it was like a 3-day convention. He had a number of speakers. And the fascinating thing was that a couple of common denominators of the speakers was, one, they come up from nothing. Now they're multimillionaires. But none of them were apologetic about their success.
Okay.
Not a one. They weren't being blowhards, but they sure weren't being humble. They weren't being apologetic. Now, in the industry, okay, the term branding is huge. You know,
oh, yeah.
Your brand this, your brand that, if you watch your branding. And I had asked, you know, some of the industry leaders, okay, well, define branding for me. I'm huge on definitions.
Right.
Huge. If you understand something, you can apply it. You don't understand something, you can't apply it. I mean, it's just utterly, utterly simple. And not one of them could describe branding. I had one person saying, well, you know, look around you. You will see your brand. It's like, thanks.
Yeah.
Well, one of the presenters, he was talking and says, well, do you know how your Facebook posts affect your branding? And then right after that, he goes, so what is your brand? It's you and what you stand for. And I'm sitting there, and I'm almost jumping up, shouting, thank you for the definition. I can think with this. A split moment later, it occurred to me, I had a brand that I had dismissed for 25 years because I was no longer competing. SuperDan.
Yeah.
People to this day know me as SuperDan. And I'm sitting there going, well, SuperDan, amazing. Wow. I texted a friend of mine, yeah, I'm at the convention and so forth. SuperDan is back. And ever since, you probably noticed on Facebook, etc., since February last year, okay, SuperDan this, SuperDan that, SuperDan this, SuperDan that. Even one of my favorite books that I've written, The SuperDan Method of Free Fighting.
Right.
Great story behind that too. But, okay, answer to your question. There's a difference between the self-imposed, I will not speak to anybody about myself because I am Mr. Miyagi. I'm very humble. Wax on, wax off, etc.
Right.
And then letting people know exactly who you are. Hi, I'm a handworker. I do Ruku Kempo. It specializes in pressure point application, whether you weaken, knock out, etc. Oh, my credentials, I'm a 5th grade black belt. My school is Bing. Huge, huge difference.
Right.
What's the impact I can make in your life? That's not bragging. That is, okay, here is what I can offer you.
Right.
Bill Shaw, he was talking about learning marketing from John Latourette.
Okay.
Okay. And he sold a bunch of videos back when video was king, right? Both John and Bill. And he said, you know, good, in your ads, you sell the sizzle, you deliver the steak. Well, if you sell the sizzle, if you deliver the steak, the sizzle is not a lie. You know what I mean?
Right.
So the thing is that, you know, when it comes to self-promotion, okay, I sit back, I plug SuperDan much more than the 10th Dan.
Right.
10th Dan in the United States still has baggage. Okay. American 10th Dan? Aren't those only in the Orient? Dan, you look awfully young to be a 10th Dan. No, honestly, I'm 66. Yes. Yes. That's what I mean. You're not in your 80s. Yeah. When my 10th Dan announcement came out, there was a guy, the only negative thing that came out, there was this one fellow who posted about knowing 2 Iaido masters who are 9th Dan and still in their 90s. Mm-hmm. Then he must have read what he posted, because after that I'm smacking the microphone. He must have read what he posted, because after that, you know, he posted, oh, congratulations. You know? But it's fascinating. Can you argue with SuperDan? No. No. You can't. You know, you match the record. You match what SuperDan has done. Great. We will sit down, and I will be absolutely happy to have an argument with you.
Right.
You can't match me. Well, you've got some work to do. Okay. At the same time, you know, is SuperDan greater than anybody else? Nah. Talk to my wife. She'll disabuse you of that idea really quick. So, you know, long story, good, you're under-promoting yourself.
Yeah.
You know, because you put in the time, you put in the effort, you put in the training, there is knowledge that you have, there is credentials that you have. Bingo. I mean, it's right there. And, you know, so one talks themselves up, and then as you talk yourself up, deliver the steak.
Yeah. Well, you know, this is something that for me, I have just started learning in the last year or so. So, you know, like my brand is just Sensei Mish. Mm-hmm. That's who I am. You know, and that can be, you know, whatever. I had.
Yeah, it's funny because in my school, I'm Professor Dan.
Right.
Yeah, it's not Super Dan. It's not Mr. Anderson. It's just, I even sign that to emails to my students, Professor Dan.
Right.
Puts me at Professor, keeps me at Dan instead of at, you know, Professor Anderson, which makes me a little bit more formal.
Right.
You see me in classes. Yeah, I've taught you. You know how formal I get.
Yeah. Yeah.
But anyway, I cut you off. Sorry.
Yeah. No, that's fine. So, but you know, that's kind of where I'm going with that. I read Start with Why. I don't know if you've. I'm going to butcher his last name, but it's Simon Sinek.
Don't know, but that's what Brandon Beliso does. He says one of the things he says is that one of his purposes is to help you find your why.
Yeah.
Why you're doing this, why you're doing that.
Yeah. And so so after reading the book, I was just like, this is almost like a Bible to me. I was like, oh my God, this is part of the answer. And so, like, for me, my why is basically my belief. What do I believe? What's the purpose of why I do all the things I do? And so my why is that I believe everybody deserves a self-defense education so they don't live a life in fear.
Okay.
And so because I look back at everything I've done, and now that terminology may change over time, but truly the core of the why doesn't.
The concept, yeah.
It's just how I express it.
Right.
And so right now, that's how I express it. And
right.
so everything that I do comes from that. So like, you know, Crucial Corner, it originally just started as, okay, I want to get pressure points on video as a reference for my students. And then it was like, well, shoot, I'll just do a web series. And then it just kind of grew from there. You know, I've got this DojoCast. This is essentially giving people information, because the self-defense is just information,
right?
Whether it be physical techniques or knowledge. And then, you know, with another thing I'm starting, which I don't know exactly when it's going to start, but Mondays with Sensei Mish, and that's another type of information, whether it's just me ranting or, hey, I want to teach this, you know, today. It's just going to be one of those things. So at least but everything kind of comes back to Sensei Mish.
Yeah.
And
comes back to that brand. Yeah.
Comes back to the brand and the why. But that's something where, you know, I'm familiar with the 10X. I think I actually own the book. Haven't read it. I tease my wife when a new Stephen King books come out. Yeah, I bought her this book. Or she goes, oh, I want to buy this book. It's like, are you going to read it? How many books does my wife have that she hasn't read? Well, I can say the same thing. There's books where I'm like, ooh, I want that book.
Yeah.
So I've actually become more of an audiobook guy, because I get the information, I can listen to it in the car or, you know, or wherever. So I'm actually buying books and actually able to read them or listen to them.
Right.
I get the same
you
information.
Ingest them.
Yeah. So and I can't remember where the hell I was going with this. But
we were talking about.
But it's all about you know, learning to promote myself. You know, so because it's like, you know, what is humble, what is being humble compared to self-promotion,
right?
And then finding the right marriage of the two.
Yeah.
So,
humility, I think, is overrated. Because humility, in a generic conceptual way, from what I have seen, also consists of a little bit of self-denigration. Okay? I have done this, I have done that, I have achieved this. I shouldn't talk about this, I should know my place. Well, there's a huge, you know, we talked about 10th Dawn acknowledgement, right?
Right.
Okay. So humility in conceptual terms, in my opinion, and I'll clearly state it as such.
Right.
Humility is almost the fine art of self-invalidation, self-non-acknowledgement.
Okay.
Let's say, okay, Bill Wallace.
Okay.
Now, if there's anybody you've met who has earned bragging rights, 3 years, #1 fighter in point competition. He goes into PKA full contact. Now, remember, I was there at the inception of PKA full contact. Joe Louis, no-brainer. Jeff Smith, no-brainer. Howard Jackson, oh my goodness. Demetrius Avanis, oh yeah. Bill's going to get killed. And what everybody, except for maybe 1 or 2 people, forgot was, what did Bill do before he did martial arts? He was a wrestler. What do we know about wrestlers? Even the weenies are tough.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, wrestlers are tough. And so there was this aspect of Bill that never came out in the point area because he didn't need to. Boom, round kick, boom. It's like back in my top 10 days, Keith Vitale, known for being the consummate pointer, but he wouldn't stuff, he wouldn't stick. And so there's this concept of he can't hit. Well, what did he do before he did points? Full contact.
Right.
Oh, Keith knew how to hit. Why wasn't he hitting in points? Because he didn't have to. Okay, now, so when we talk about, let's say, bragging rights,
Yeah.
Bill Wallace, bragging rights, Keith Vitale. Here are 2 guys who, or here's another one, for crying out loud, Benny the Jet. You want to talk about bragging rights. Man. So you got Bill, you got Keith, you got Benny. Jeff Smith is another one. Bragging rights. But the thing is they acknowledge to themselves what they have done. And so when you're around Jeff, he's not as jovial as Bill, but I don't know who's as jovial as Bill.
Right.
But you get a sense of certainty. You get around Keith, you get a sense of certainty. You sit and talk to Benny the Jet. Now, you talk about someone who's soft-spoken, quiet, smile on his face, but what do you get over the airwaves? Here's one certain young man. Around my age. I don't know if he's a young man anymore.
Yeah.
But the thing is that where I'm going with this is that, and you've probably noticed no lack of certainty with me.
Right.
Okay. That's one's acknowledgement of what they've done and what they've achieved and who they are in life. Humility, unfortunately, you'll see that.
Yeah.
Okay. That's not acknowledging who you are.
Right.
And unfortunately, and maybe it might just be the word itself that has been really hammered into from the Orient in the martial arts as to how this is how you're supposed to act, as opposed to like here's a great example. My ex-wife and I were up in Vancouver, BC. We're in a little bookshop. We're kind of tootling around, waiting for I think the ferry, because I think we're going to drive across this Vancouver Island. And who is there looking through a magazine in a bookshop? John Travolta. Should we go say something to him? I don't know. Should we? Sure, why not? Okay. We walk up and we just start chatting. Another guy Now, here's a guy who's made millions on the movie screen. Same thing, Sigourney Weaver. I met her several years ago at one of the Soka Ship Council things. And we just chatted like she lived next door, not putting on airs, but at the same time, so not like Miss Humility, but at the same time, not Miss Braggart. What you had is you had somebody here who had made these, terrific movies, or the same thing with John Travolta, made these movies, a superstar in the industry, but is not going to act with their nose up in the air, et cetera, et cetera.
Right.
This is how I think, accomplished martial artists should act. They know what they've done. They know they're awfully good, or they've attained an awful lot. But, they're not standing there either on a soapbox so they can look down at you, nor is the pie, coming into the face from their right hand, smush, to put you in their place.
Right.
And so, the term humility, I have a hard time with that. But, we substitute perhaps that with self-certainty. Okay. I can deal with that.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah. No,
and
I like it.
A lot of the grandmasters that I know now, the ones who I know who are, real deal rock and roll, et cetera, they're all great guys. And you pick it up over the airwaves that you can feel this certainty, but at the same time, they sit across the table like you and I are sitting across. The only thing that's missing is the microphones and the cameras.
Right.
So.
Right on.
Yeah, my opinion.
Yeah.
Clearly stated as such, and I am full of opinions. So, here's a question for you.
Sure.
What is something about me that you've always wondered about, or never knew, or just kind of piqued your curiosity, but every time we've gotten together, you've forgotten to ask?
Oh my gosh, I don't know.
Okay, well, while you're thinking,
okay,
I'll go. The question that comes from you is, okay, so what about these other systems, and why haven't you trained them? Because I mentioned about BJJ, I mentioned about Systema, I mentioned about the pressure point theory and so forth, and why haven't I done these? I don't have the time. Now, see, here's an interesting thing. Normally, usually when somebody says, well, I don't have time for that, usually it comes across in that type of attitude, right? But when, if I was 20 to 25, and I had 6 days a week to train, and I didn't have to support myself, oh my goodness, I'd be over there. I'd be 4 blocks down the street, rolling with Annabelle Lobo, who has a BJJ school. I'd be running over to your place a couple times a week to work on the pressure point. There's a fellow by the name of Dean Foster, who is one of Fred King's old students.
Okay.
Who, well, I can't say old student, probably still a student, but he's also a student of Vladimir. I'd probably be hooking up with him. But instead, what have I got? Well, let's see, I run a dojo full time. I am married, so I'd probably better see my wife. And then the other thing is that, in a sense, I'm, kind of set in my ways. Okay? I'm a karate guy. I'm not a ground guy. I'm working on the relaxation that BJJ guys have. I'm working on my accuracy, which is it's kind of needed and wanted in pressure point. So there's certain aspects, and it's like, okay, I have a mixing bowl. Now, this particular mixing bowl is pretty chock full of ingredients, but what can I add that enhances what's in the mixing bowl? Why? Well, A, I've got responsibilities. B, I've only got X amount of years on this planet left, at least in this body.
Right.
You know, if I last another 20 years, that's 86 years old, for crying out loud. Wow, what a concept. I think like a kid, but I get up in the morning and the body's going, hi there, kind of stiff, aren't we? You know?
Yeah.
So, you know, when it comes to various things, you know, the two things, my karate base, and then my Filipino martial arts base, which has really opened the door for application of flowing actions, relaxed actions, and that sort of thing. It's actually opened the door so that I can snag this principle, work on this, snag that principle, work on that, and enhance what I do. But, you know, are there enough hours in the day? No. I have to sleep sometime.
Right.
And so these other arts, yeah, terrific stuff. I mean, the vast wealth of martial arts that is available in the United States at this point in time is staggering.
Right.
You want to do Muay Thai? I'm pretty sure I can, you know, Google up a place here in Portland where, good, you can rock and roll with the best of them. Pressure point, good. I know a guy in Vancouver, who teaches pressure point. You want to roll BJJ? Well, there's a guy about 4 to 5 blocks down Powell Boulevard that you can roll with. You want to do Systema, or you want to do something else. There are people available, which is just really, really tremendous. Do I have the time to avail myself of that? No.
Yeah.
Does it bother me? No. Because again, I'm certain within what I do for me that do I need to train in other things to augment what I know for A, personal satisfaction, and then B, for simple self-defense.
Yeah.
Because that means all these styles, all they are is an approach to protecting yourself.
Right.
So you've got the BJJ approach. In fact, the way that I like to describe it is, if you look at combat, okay, combat's chaos.
Right.
Two cats in a blender. Two cats in a blender. Now, at one point or another, somebody figured out a way to put order or a semblance of order in the chaos.
Right.
Now, that might have been grab the guy and hit him. So he teaches his student, good, this is how I create order. This is the grab the guy and slug him. Now, the guy that he teaches is short and squat. So he doesn't have the reach to grab the guy. So he grabs the guy with 2 hands and falls to the ground so the guy can't beat on him.
Right.
We have wrestling. So now we've got the grab and bang, and we've got the go to the floor. And he teaches another guy who goes, why don't I, no, wait a minute. That hurts. Rolling around on the ground hurts. I'll pick this up, whack, and I'll hit the guy with the stick.
Right.
Oh, now we have 3 styles of martial arts. One is a capture and slug. One's a lay on the person. The other one's pick up the stick and wham.
Right.
And when you look at self-defense, okay, Taekwondo has its way, Ruku has its way, American Freestyle Karate has its way, BJJ has its way, etc., 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 etc. And which one's right, which one's wrong? Well, let's see. The winner is right, and the loser is wrong. But it has nothing to do with styles.
Yeah.
You know, so
well, and I understand that, and you know, because when we first met, I was of course training in harness under Donnell.
Yeah.
Because that was the only, at least from my perspective, the only harness program that was
the only avenue that you had, right?
Because after going out and training with Remy, in Florida, I came back. I'm like, I really need to get back into this stick thing because I had learned a couple things, but I never really studied it.
Yeah.
So it was like, okay, so this is what I'm going to do. So I ended up meeting Danelle. Then Danelle introduced me to you. And then I got permission from her to train with you and her at the same time. And then it kind of melded just me always with you. And then something got in the way, like family or work or whatever.
Life happens.
Like life
gets in the way of all the stuff you want to do for fun.
And I even remember telling you, hey, sir, I can't come to class this week because I got to do X, Y, Z. And you're like, hey, dude, it's okay.
Yeah.
And then, of course, more things happen. And it's like, oh, God, I'd love to drive to Gresham, on Monday night or Wednesday or whenever.
I remember when you were planning
and it's like, I just, because, I want to get back into it. I want to bang sticks because, you can only bang sticks by yourself. You only can get so much out of it.
It's not very satisfying.
It's not very satisfying.
Yeah,
So it's like, but yeah, it's time. And then, of course, like with me, my 40-hour job and teaching and, everything else. Like I mentioned earlier, I took over a Wednesday class because a buddy of mine who was leading it, he's just like, I want to be a student again. And I can't be a student, at least for him, the way his schedule works.
Right.
I can't be a student and a teacher at the same time. I have to choose one or the other.
Yeah.
And so he's, and he was telling me, I don't want to leave this group. They need somebody. And so he's like, he asked me if I would take over. And so I, we just kind of created this connection and I took over and it's been good for everybody. But it's just one of those things for him, and I talk to him now and he's like, I really love being a student. It's just like, it's, but
it's fun.
Yeah. But he constantly asks me, how's the Wednesday night group going? And it was funny because for him, it was Thursday night.
Yeah.
But for me, with my schedule, I was like, I can do Wednesdays or Fridays.
Right.
And so for them, Wednesdays work better, which, hey, that's, whatever works. But yeah, no, it's all about time. Because honestly, if I had time and money, I'd end up going to the last Stillman seminar. Because I think the last time George Stillman is teaching is this April. I think it's Will Higginbotham's. They have that thing every year.
Oh, is he retiring?
I think he advertised that he is officially retiring. It's his last seminar.
Okay.
I would make it out there. I follow Chris Thomas, and I did an interview with him for episode 100. He does this thing every year. I think this is going to be year 3, a week-long training seminar.
Oh wow,
dude! I'd love to do that, and it's here and here and here, and it's just like, where's the time?
Yeah.
Where's the time? So it's like, okay, so I go back to just like what you were saying. It's like, I have my Kempo, I have my Kyusho, and, I do a little bit of stick, but I've really, since I met Bram, and that was another thing that I attribute to you is that you introduced me to Bram. I do the knife.
Yeah.
And so it's like, I hit people and I cut people. And if I don't have a knife, I can just hit them over the head with a stick.
There you go.
So it's, so it all
bases covered.
Yeah. So, it is, it's about the time. So I don't play, here's the thing is that I can't really become a millionaire with the lottery because I don't play the lottery. But
got to play it to win it.
Got to play it to win it.
Yeah. Marie and I my wife and I tell each other that all the time. Oh boy, it'd be great to win that.
Yeah.
Oh, you got to play it to win it. We never play it. Yeah. But yeah, I understand.
So, well, I was looking at the time. We have been doing this
for close to 3 hours.
I'd say maybe 2, at least the recording part.
Okay.
Close to 2. So I think we'd probably end it, and we can always come back again and do this again and talk about other stuff.
Okay.
So
good.
I really appreciate you giving me the time today to help me out.
You bet.
And I value your friendship.
Same.
I wish you all the luck in everything that you're doing, and I'm there to help you out with any questions you have. So for anybody watching or listening in the comment by, well, please comment, share, whatever. In fact, if you're not following me on Facebook, well, specifically YouTube, this is going to be mainly on YouTube. If you're not subscribing, please subscribe. You hit the little subscribe button, and there is that little bell, that little ringy-dingy bell. Click that if you want to know any time that I post something new. And if you're not following Professor Anderson here, SuperDan, get on his link. I'll put a little link in the little thing. Follow him, subscribe, and you'll see everything new that comes up for him.
And we're talking about cheap, shameless plugs.
Oh, shame away, plug away.
When we talk about it's funny because I talked to or emailed a guy today who had mentioned to me that now when he buys my materials, he'll buy them from the website because he had bought a book and he thought DVDs came with it. Well, no, the DVDs came with the book from the website, but there's that. But also, you get faster service. Plus, I make a little bit more when you go to the website. So if you go to the what it's called, SuperDanOnlineLibrary.com. Books, hard DVDs, digital downloads. You've got over 50 items to choose from. I mean, if you have a question about martial arts, you'll probably find the answer in there somewhere. And if you look at the cover, you read the blurb, and you don't find an answer, you just email me.
Yeah.
And I will tell you either A, it's in there, and if it's not in there, I'll answer your question.
Yeah.
Because, every single martial arts person that I have hooked up with always answered my questions. That's how you pay it forward. That's what all the books and the DVDs and the upcoming online academies for. Any questions that and I'll be honest, if I can't answer the question, I won't answer it either. So ask him about pressure point, don't ask me, because I can spell the words pressure point, but when it comes to any knowledge of them, that's not my skill set. It's not my pay grade. But there's a lot I can help with, and anything I can do to steer you in a direction that's going to make you better, just let me know.
Right on.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, thank you, and
you
thank you.
Is this on camera? Here.
Yeah.
There it is. It's on camera. Okay, good.
All right, and
over and out.